Penguin Audio presents Ghost Wars, the secret history of the CIA, Afghanistan, and Bin Laden, from the Soviet invasion to September 10, 2001. By Steve Coll. Read by Malcolm Hillgartner. For Susan, who understood. Author's note. Griff Whitty, a 2000 graduate in history from Princeton University and a former reporter for the Miami Herald, worked for more than a year as my assistant on this book. He was a full partner in every respect. He contributed research, reporting, writing, editing, and ideas. He traveled to Afghanistan, Dubai, and across the United States to conduct interviews with dozens of sources. He wrote outstanding first drafts of Chapters 6 and 17. His intelligence, persistence, resourcefulness, and high standards strengthened the book elsewhere in countless ways. He was an ideal collaborator and essential to the entire project. Prologue. Accounts Receivable. September 1996. In the tattered, cargo-strewn cabin of an Ariana Afghan Airlines passenger jet, streaking above Punjab toward Kabul, sat a stocky, broad-faced American with short graying hair. He was a friendly man, in his early 50s, who spoke in a flat Midwestern accent. He looked as if he might be a dentist, an acquaintance once remarked. Gary Schroen had served for 26 years as an officer in the Central Intelligence Agency's clandestine services. He was now, in September 1996, chief of station in Islamabad, Pakistan. He spoke Persian and its cousin Dari, one of Afghanistan's two main languages. In spy terminology, Schroen was an operator. He recruited and managed paid intelligence agents, conducted espionage operations, and supervised covert actions against foreign governments and terrorist groups. A few weeks before, with approval from CIA headquarters in Langley, Virginia, he had made contact through intermediaries with Ahmed Shah Massoud, the celebrated anti-Soviet guerrilla commander, now defense minister in a war-battered Afghan government crumbling from within. Schroen had requested a meeting, and Massoud had accepted. They had not spoken in 5 years. During the late 1980s and early 1990s, as allies battling Soviet occupation forces and their Afghan communist proxies, the CIA had pumped cash stipends as high as $200,000 a month to Massoud and his Islamic guerrilla organization, along with weapons and other supplies. Between 1989 and 1991, Schroen had personally delivered some of the cash. But the aid stopped in December 1991 when the Soviet Union dissolved. The United States government decided it had no further interests in Afghanistan. Meanwhile, the country had collapsed. Kabul, once an elegant city of broad streets and walled gardens tucked spectacularly amid barren crags, had been pummeled by its warlords into a state of physical ruin and human misery that compared unfavorably to the very worst places on earth. Armed factions within armed factions erupted seasonally in vicious urban battles, blasting down mud brick block after mud brick block in search of tactical advantages usually apparent only to them. Militias led by Islamic scholars who disagreed profoundly over religious minutiae baked prisoners of war to death by the hundreds in discarded metal shipping containers. The city had been without electricity since 1993. Hundreds of thousands of Kabulis relied for daily bread and tea on the courageous but limited efforts of international charities. In some sections of the countryside, thousands of displaced refugees died of malnutrition and preventable disease because they could not reach clinics and feeding stations. And all the while, neighboring countries, Pakistan, Iran, India, Saudi Arabia, delivered pallets of guns and money to their preferred Afghan proxies. The governments of these countries sought territorial advantage over their neighbors. Money and weapons also arrived from individuals or Islamic charities seeking to extend their spiritual and political influence by proselytizing to the destitute. Ahmed Shah Massoud remained Afghanistan's most formidable military leader. A sinewy man with a wispy beard and penetrating dark eyes, he had become a charismatic
Sample complete. Ready to continue?